Hello and welcome. My name is Professor Mick Grierson and I am Research Leader at UAL's Creative Computing Institute. I'm here today to tell you about our new course in Data Science and AI for the creative industries. Technology has always been key to the creative industries. New tools, approaches and technologies have the power to influence and challenge the ways we choose to communicate, express and reflect the world around us. New data-driven technologies, including artificial intelligence and machine learning, have become a critical part of how we produce, consume, discuss, and understand creativity. From recommendation engines, to voice-controlled apps, to videos, sounds, and experience design applications, artificial intelligence and machine learning continues to transform how creative people work in today's industries. Artificial intelligence and data science make entirely new kinds of creative work possible, including in areas such as film, music, photography, communications and journalism. And we have the ability to understand people's creative needs like never before and suggest things they might want to enjoy. We can also create entirely new forms of media, including augmented images, sounds, entirely new types of video and graphics, and even whole films using data science, AI and machine learning. But there's also a downside. This same technology also enables deep fakes, fake news, targeted misinformation, and facilitates the creation of sometimes mediocre content generated through low quality and sometimes poorly engineered algorithms. And so this is where you come in. Wouldn't it be great if people who were already skilled in the creative arts and industries were able to understand and control these types of technologies better? What kind of future might that bring, and not just for you, but for the entire industry? This might sound great, but also how can someone with a strong creative background develop the necessary skills to become future leaders in developing creative economies and technologies? MSc Data Science and Artificial Intelligence for the Creative Industries offers BA Arts and Humanities graduates the opportunity to reorient their studies to an applied STEM discipline in a creative industries context. The course gives you the opportunity to learn computing and data science skills from the ground up. And it allows you to do this in ways that are relevant for how the creative industries are changing in response to the challenges and opportunities made available by AI and machine learning. It also introduces you to practical approaches to AI and machine learning that you might not have thought you could do before. The program trains you to use and control the key technologies required to develop a highly practical understanding of data science and AI for the creative industries and also for the creative arts and media. The course will give you a solid grounding in core mathematics, statistics, algorithms and programming, delivered by AI and machine learning experts who work in the creative industries all the time. At Creative Computing Institute, our staff have decades of experience using data science and AI in the creative industries, and also in training creative people to develop real-world computer science and engineering competencies. So what will the course do for you? Well, the course enables you to transform your educational experience by providing you with STEM training relevant to your existing expertise in creative arts and industries. It will equip you with a range of advanced computational approaches to the exploration of data science questions. It will also give you an advanced grounding in data science, AI and machine learning technologies, text systems, image-making systems, sounds and other forms of media. It will improve your critical awareness as well, and your ability to think creatively and critically about the ethics that are impacting our industry as we adopt these new technologies. The course will prepare you to become a professional data scientist and AI expert who can work within the creative industries to transform what is possible in the future of media.
So what exactly will you be studying if you choose to take a course
in Data Science and AI for the Creative Industries at the Creative Computing Institute. I'm going to give you a quick overview of each of the units that you'll be doing and give you a bit more detail and information. The units I'm going to be covering are STEM for Creatives, Introduction to Data Science, Natural Language Processing for the Creative Industries, Artificial Intelligence for Media, Data Science for the Creative Industries, Personalization and Machine Learning, and the final thesis project. These are the units that make up the entire program for MSc Data Science and AI for the Creative Industries. So the first unit I'm going to talk about is STEM for Creatives. STEM for Creatives is an introductory STEM conversion bootcamp for arts and humanities graduates. STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering and Maths. And this part of the course introduces core science, engineering, maths principles, techniques and methods required to undertake the STEM data science courses later in the program. The unit is taught by STEM academics who have worked in the creative industries, including film, music, TV, fashion, advertising and journalism. So if these are the kinds of backgrounds where you've been working, you know that the person who's going to be teaching you understands what exact STEM approaches are more relevant for your chosen area of study. In addition, this isn't just a course to turn you from a creative into a scientist, and it's also not intended to tell you everything there is to know about science. What it is a boot camp. It's a way for you to slowly begin to understand the kinds of approaches which are essential for doing STEM-style work in your chosen field. Following that, we have an Introduction to Data Science. The Introduction to Data Science unit uses programming approaches in languages such as Python to deliver introductory training. The sorts of topics we're covering in this course include statistics, structuring data, which includes acquiring data and cleaning data and organizing it into databases, analyzing data using algorithms, in particular with large data sets, what we call big data. You'll also be introduced to the idea of topic modeling, which is often used to analyze large amounts of text, for example, social media sites. But most importantly, this course gives you a thorough introduction to data ethics, data handling, and general data protection regulation, which is some of the most important material you can begin to understand when embarking on a course of this kind. Following this, you'll be learning natural language processing for the creative industries. This course introduces ways in which natural language processing, or NLP, is used in the creative industries through a critical exploration of NLP practices and contexts, including customer service, customer insights, data journalism, and communications. You will use Python and JavaScript to develop approaches for text analysis, text generation, chatbot creation, and other conversational interfaces, developing an understanding of how these approaches are used in real-world contexts. The course helps students develop an understanding of how to create and use chatbots, text analysis systems, text generators, and simple conversational interfaces, whilst also introducing simple and practical techniques, including web scraping, web spidering, word counting, keyword extraction, auto-summarization, and a range of other interesting techniques. One of the most exciting courses in the program is Artificial Intelligence for Media. This class introduces students to practical artificial intelligence tools such as TensorFlow and PyTorch for signal processing, classification, regression, and creative approaches such as style transfer, image generation, and video generation using neural networks. You will explore machine learning techniques including the use of convolutional neural networks, autoencoders, generative adversarial networks or GANs, pix-to-pix systems, and video-to-video systems, including other media-specific approaches, for example, for audio generation, speech generation, and other types of media. You will benefit from training from senior CCI researchers with experience working across industrial product teams, including at places like Google Brain, but also in other areas of the creative industries such as the music industry and the film and the video industries, television, broadcast and radio. The Data Science in the Creative Industries program is about your relationship with industry partners. The unit is taught in partnership with industry partners directly from the creative industries, in particular those who make use of data science and AI approaches as part of their everyday work. This includes people in advertising, people in music technology, in broadcast. Partners present industry case studies to you in data science approaches to product development and applied approaches to campaign insight, customer interfaces, media analysis and generation. And this might include the creation of large-scale exhibition design approaches, including for experiences in museums and galleries and collections, or large-scale public experiences and viral videos. The course provides students with a strong real-world understanding of how data science and AI is impacting on the creative industries by situating data science and AI approaches in that context by professionals through describing what they actually do. This part of the course is assessed through essay, so you'll write a critical essay on the work that you've experienced and through discussion with creative industries partners. Another very exciting unit that you do on this course is called Personalization and Machine Learning. Through the use of relevant industry standard languages, including Python and JavaScript, this computing experience enables you to build and deploy systems for recommendation and personalization based on a range of approaches. The course introduces core concepts in information retrieval, including feature representations, feature extraction, data sets of features, similarity and distance metrics in multidimensional space, search and ranking. Now this is a hugely problematic area and it really requires a lot of thought. I think we've all experienced what we might call poor recommendations. So that means it's a wide open area and a great place for people in the creative industries to expand, develop and improve. You will learn common programming approaches to the design of recommender systems, including content-based filtering and collaborative filtering. You will learn to understand core techniques including audience analysis via data-driven methods including clustering and regression, and examine the impact of interdisciplinary approaches to data science via psychological constructs. Finally, you will undertake a thesis project in data science and AI for the creative industries. You can do more or less anything you want in a thesis project, but here are some ideas of some things you might choose to do. You might choose to build your own artificial intelligence system to make films, media, music, or artworks. You might choose to challenge contemporary thinking about how data science and AI can be used in the creative industries and beyond. You might choose to shed light on ethical issues around personalization, data rights, surveillance, consumerism, and social justice from a more powerful and more informed perspective. You might bring insights to the debate around augmentation versus automation for developing new approaches to creative working environments. And you might choose to consider how you can change the way data and machine learning impacts culture and society. In order to shed more light on all of these areas and to give you a better idea of the kinds of people who you'd be learning with, I've interviewed Dr. Rebecca Fiebrink, who is Reader at UAL Creative Computing Institute. Rebecca Fiebrink, great to see you.
Great to see you, Mick Grierson.
Thanks for agreeing to talk. It's going to be an exciting chat about data science and artificial intelligence in the creative industries. There's lots and lots of things that we could talk about, but specifically, I thought it would be great to get your view on the kinds of work that people are doing in the creative industries in different areas and what those problems might be. And also, the kinds of problems that those people are tackling and how that might change in the future. So that's kind of what I thought the conversation could be about. I thought it would be great to start by saying, what kind of changes might AI and data science have on how music is made in the future?
Great, glad you asked that. So I think I'll start out by saying that a lot of the popular conversation in this space has been around how AI and machine learning in particular are becoming better and better at generating new music or generating other forms of art for that matter. And the conversation then tends to get steered toward this very specific view of the future where it's machines who are being creative and it's humans who are doing the consuming of this creative content, and that's sort of the end of the story. And that's, I see that as a very, not just dystopian, but rather uninteresting kind of future. That isn't to say there isn't interesting work being done. I think the recent jukebox example, AI jukebox from OpenAI, shows some really interesting things that you can do with automated composition methods. And yes, machines are in fact getting better and better at the problem of learning from a large set of music and then generating new music that sounds like music in that set, for instance. But I want to back away from that a little bit and share how I think about this space, which is really, AI and machine learning have become useful in so many domains because they're essentially just a set of tools for making sense of data and doing new types of things more quickly with data. And we can think about them as tools for learning about patterns in data and then seeing patterns that allow them to make predictions about what might happen in the future. Or we can look at them as tools for learning about patterns in data and then generating new data with those same patterns, or several other things. And so, yes, it's true that we could look at music itself as a bunch of data and we could generate new music that looks similar to something that we have in a data set. But that's just one of hundreds, thousands of different things that you could do with data and machine learning in music that are really interesting. I think there's certainly a big space for technology to change the ways that people make music and listen to music, and do all sorts of other peripheral tasks related to music when we think about all the different kinds of data that might be involved. So for instance, we have in recording of music, we have different tracks that have been recorded. Those could, we could think about those as data and manipulate those in certain ways. We have the way that people edit, mix, master tracks. That itself, those human actions, are data that we might collect and then, for instance, use prediction to predict how someone might mix or master a new set of tracks. Or we might use data from individual instruments to quickly identify what instruments are present in a new recording and automatically use that to inform the way that that mixing or editing is happening. And so iZotope has had some tools in this space for a few years now that essentially say, hey, we've got these opportunities to make some aspects of the music creation process either easier and faster for experts, or give novices the ability to start doing useful work in that space on these tasks where there's maybe a steep learning curve. And we can look at similar tasks all throughout the composition and creation process, whether it's, say, hey, I want to play a riff into my computer and have it come up with a bass line or a drum track for that riff. There's all sorts of other, I think, even more interesting ways that we can use machine learning to support exploratory actions in music. Not just saying, well, machine learning can make you do the right thing better and more quickly, but to help use machine learning to help people say, hey, what's in this space of creative possibilities that I haven't found yet. So for instance, we already have machine learning algorithms that allow you to play a little bit of melody or play a bass or a drum track and then say, how might this be continued? Or what other content might go with this? And maybe you never use that, right? Maybe you're not using the AI to literally finish your composition for you. But you could use it as a way to say, hey, you know what? I'm now listening to my own material in a slightly different way. I'm now thinking about other directions that I could move this content in. And again, there have been tools that do that for a few years now that are really easy to use. The Magenta Studio is one of them that anybody can go download and use with Ableton or use with MIDI. And then, for instance, in my own work, I do a totally different set of things with machine learning, where we might want to model how somebody is moving when they play music as a performer, or model how a dancer is moving in a performance, or model how the sound of an instrument is changing over time, and then use that not to literally generate more of the same type of data, but to build a machine system that makes decisions based on that content or maps to a different domain. So for instance, I could use machine learning to move in a certain way as a performer and train a computer to produce certain types of sounds in response to certain movements, or to produce certain lighting changes in response to a dancer, or produce certain choreography in response to an acoustic musician, or any number of other things. So there's a huge space here, and once you realize that lots of different things can be thought of as data, then you really see there's a lot of possible.
I mean, there's a lot of things there, but I think that a couple of really exciting things that you said aren't really thought about very often in relation to data science and AI. In particular, the notion that music and media and all kinds of things that you think of as ordinary creative outputs, that's data, right? So doing any kind of scientific operation on any kind of media you experience, that's data science, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about massive amounts of audio data, massive amounts of video data all over the internet, and that's not something people normally think about, right?
Right.
The other thing there is, the notion that we're talking about entirely new types of creative possibilities, entirely new ways of making art that people haven't considered before, that aren't just about getting a machine to automatically generate stuff. It's actually about creating a completely different slant, a different perspective. So yeah, that's super exciting. I wanted to ask you another question about this, but more to do with how we listen to music and other forms of media, how we enjoy that media, So how is that working at the moment? And, what's actually going on behind the scenes in terms of how people's listening and entertainment habits are changing because of AI and data science?
Yeah, so one simple way to think about it, again, is realizing that there are all sorts of streams of data that a company like Google within YouTube, or a company like Spotify has access to and can use to try to make predictions about what you might enjoy listening to. And so a really simple way of framing this problem is to say, well, I've listened to these things in the past, maybe I've used these search terms, and the prediction problem here is to predict what might I want to listen to next in this playlist at this moment, or what might I enjoy discovering at some point in the near future. And we've got that data, this listening and search histories from millions of people, and from that we can find some patterns about what people have listened to, what you've listened to, and if you like artists XYZ, and a million other people like artists XYZ and A, then predicting that you might enjoy listening to A is maybe a safe bet, right? So framed that way, it's actually, I think, pretty simple to understand. And of course, there's all sorts of ways that researchers at these types of companies are thinking about how to make that even better, right? More suited to your individual moment in which you are listening, taking into account other factors that might be predictive of what you might enjoy.
It seems to me that what you're saying is really exciting, right? There's loads of really great ways that we could use customization, personalization, recommendation to help us find new forms of entertainment, and the creative industries have to do this, and they're doing it well. But what sort of problems exist in that space? Where isn't it working?
I think there's been some very productive attention drawn in the last few years to YouTube in particular, the way that you might start out watching a particular genre video on YouTube, and then within a few steps, you might be pulled into a black hole of, something that you didn't exactly sign up for, whether that's, extremist political propaganda or, just really bad music. Obviously, the first is a bigger social problem than the second, but they're both manifestations of the same underlying principle, and that when you use these automated algorithms, it is fundamentally different than talking to your friend and saying, hey, I've been listening to this band lately, I know you like them, what else should I listen to? An algorithm might give you a really great niche answer and tell you a band that your friend has never heard of, or they might give you bring you to a dark place. And we don't have human oversight. Most of the time, there isn't somebody at Spotify saying, oh, well, Mick's recommendations this week include, this whatever right-wing propaganda, polka. Maybe he won't like that. We'll cross that off the list. And at the same time, many of the algorithms being designed aren't necessarily designed to make it easy for people to retrospectively look at them and say, where did this algorithm itself go wrong, or how might we tune the algorithm to make this less likely? Not to say there isn't a whole lot that people have the ability to do to fix these types of problems, but there are some open research challenges here.
Yeah, so there's kind of a lot of scope for making these systems better, basically.
Absolutely.
Do you think if people with good domain knowledge, if people really understand the arts and the humanities, if people really understand media as well, do you think the kind of work that they will do in the data science industry, particularly around recommendations, do you think it would be improved or not? Is there capacity?
I absolutely think it would be improved. I think, and that's one of the reasons that I'm really excited about the new program that we are offering, because I'm trained as a computer scientist. I'm a musician as well, but most of my computer science training was very conventional. And when you take a machine learning course or an information retrieval course as a computer science student, you're thinking very algorithmically. You're thinking about the elegance of the algorithms, the really exciting ability to suddenly, see the world as data, as I mentioned, and take these powerful tools and apply them to new problems. And that's intellectually incredibly satisfying, but it's also fundamentally removed from, what does that data mean? What is the social context of that data? What is the cultural context of that data? Who is the user of your system? And even within computer science, there's often a gap between the people developing machine learning algorithms and studying, data science applications of those algorithms, and people in what I would call my field of human-computer interaction who think about usability, who think about social impact, who think about the consequences of how these technologies are designed and how they're deployed. And if somebody is coming into this domain with already an understanding of of music or of other content or of the social and creative goals that they may have, then suddenly they're not going to be pulled as easily into that tunnel vision of saying, well, this is just about the algorithm and it's just about the data. And that opens up, I think, new ideas for how these algorithms can be deployed, but as well as new ways of thinking about solutions when things, might go wrong. Saying, all right, we don't necessarily need a new algorithm to fix this. We don't need to wait for computer science researchers to do 10 more years of work in this area. We can, use our understanding of the domain and our understanding of the users and make something that works better right now, because it's that's the right thing to do.
And that's an amazing opportunity for people who have a good background in creative industries, and then are coming to this subject with all of that knowledge already in place, which is the knowledge that industry actually needs to get these problems right. That's fantastic. I want to kind of change topic a little bit and talk about journalism as a kind of as an application area for AI and data science. And I was wondering how important you feel AI and data science are to fields such as journalism, and what kind of impacts it's likely to have on journalism in the future.
That's a great question. I think I have a skeptical way of looking at this, and maybe a more optimistic way of looking at it. A number of people have been quite vocal about how social media and the sort of datafication of journalism can lead to very strange changes to incentive structures when you think about the data that's collected. Sorry.
Can you be clear about what you mean by incentive structures?
Absolutely, yes. So 50 years ago, if you were a journalist and you wrote an article for a newspaper, that article would get mailed out to people in the newspaper, and people would buy that newspaper. And you had a very weak feedback signal about how that article may have impacted the public. Most of the time, either sales of the newspaper went up or down. You got maybe some personal feedback from your boss and your colleagues, but you didn't know how many people read that article. You didn't know whether they liked it or hated it or got a friend to read it, and so on. Whereas now you could, even be writing for a fairly conventional newspaper or magazine or similar outlet, but writing online, and metrics are being collected about every single way that somebody interacts with that piece of content. Who reads it? Do they share it? Do they tweet or write about it? And that's a very strong feedback signal. And at the surface, that may seem like a really good thing. You could say, well, hey, I can find out what responds with my readers, and I can do more of that. There's a lot of dangers here, though, that intersect with the dangers of social media more generally. People like Jaron Lanier, for instance, have talked about how people are more likely to interact with content online when it provokes strong emotions, and in particular, strong negative emotions. So if you're writing work that just, gets people agitated about some particular thing, even if it's not necessarily enriching their worldview or encouraging them to consider an issue in a more nuanced way, you may see that you get much more traction. And so that, again, is giving a strong feedback signal, and likewise incentives in the ad revenue that you're likely to get by sticking ads on pages that are read more frequently. That is goes back to not only the publication itself, but may go back to the person who wrote that piece. So it's a strange landscape of incentives that don't necessarily align with what a journalist might deep down want to achieve, or what their readership might want from that journalism.
So there's a kind of a capacity for AI and data science to pull the industry away from its core reason for existing. And as a result, that maybe that could lead to an entirely different, to the industry suffering as a result. Or like the information content, for example, might reduce. And the incentives might not match readers' requirements, and so people might just stop reading, or certain kinds of readers would just leave that content stream altogether, and then you might lose influence of a certain type, and there's all sorts of complex interactions, right? That's really
absolutely fun. And I think there are analogs to this in other types of media where we are able to measure things like engagement, and then again, people who aren't necessarily keeping an eye on what their ultimate goals are for that content or for that relationship with consumers of that content. It's very easy to then just become narrowly focused on the things that are easy to measure, and that can lead you into strange places.
Right, so that's interesting. And so in a way, having people who are passionate and who care deeply about communication and specific aspects of communication in what we might think of as a traditional kind of creative industries fashion could be really super useful for improving the quality in the overall delivery of information in the digital age with data science and AI.
Absolutely, and I see the role there in a few different ways. One is just people who are bringing reflective and strongly held values to the table are going to make a difference in this space. People who know the limitations of the metrics that are used and don't necessarily assume that the metrics align with those values also bring something important. But furthermore, people who have been trained to understand these algorithmic techniques more deeply and even have the ability to change them, to build on them, to imagine, hey, what else might we measure with this data? That opens up a very exciting new space.
Right, because all it takes is for one or two small but significant changes to be made to those algorithms and those incentive structures, and then the industry might shift again in a different direction. And so that's why it becomes exciting to explore these areas, because it's a really wide open, Wild West scenario with lots of opportunity for change.
For sure. And again, the change, I don't think that change is going to come from just waiting for computer scientists to develop new algorithms. It's absolutely going to come from people who are working on the ground in these industries and saying, what is it that we really want to achieve with the data science that we're using?
So it's really clear that the creative industries stand to benefit greatly from having people with really strong domain knowledge in creative industries working in data science and AI in those businesses. But what about the advantages for those people? Like if you're a creative industries person, if you're a fine artist or a sculptor, or maybe you did journalism, or maybe you studied music or filmmaking, what are the advantages for you going into a career in data science for the creative industries?
I think there's a few, and it's going to be different for different people. But for me, what I would say is number one, I find a lot of the algorithmic work, the analysis of data, fundamentally interesting. It's really interesting to take this different perspective on media that we're intimately familiar with, and say what new possibilities does this suggest for how we might interact with this content, how we might create this content. But then, beyond the just, finding it intellectually fascinating, there's a new toolbox that begins to open up, even with just a little bit of understanding of the algorithms and, some practice in programming, especially with, some toolkits that are out there to allow, people to start playing with data. It begins to be possible not only to become a better and better critic of these algorithms, more able to offer substantive, useful critique of what they are doing and how they're doing it and proposing alternatives. But also, this brings the ability to start appropriating these algorithms and applying them in ways that computer scientists maybe didn't intend them to be applied, in ways that they're not conventionally used in data science, to start doing really creative things, whether that's, exploring new ways of making art with them, exploring new ways of getting data about, about people who are impacted by something that you want to engage with as a journalist, by communicating about data in ways that are maybe more accessible to your audiences, and bringing data out beyond just an internal tool that you use to optimize your own processes or create your own content, but bringing that out as something that other people engage with alongside you. There's all sorts of empowering possibilities that come with a bit of knowledge and skill.
Yeah, so gaining that new knowledge and gaining those new skills give you power, right? It gives you power to go in and transform industry and change what it does. So if you're sitting at home thinking, you know what, none of this is the way I think it should be, or it sounds really exciting and I want to be part of that change, then it seems like an opportunity, right? That's fantastic.
Definitely.
Well, I think that's a really great set of answers to some really interesting and stimulating questions and problems. Thanks very much, Rebecca. And yeah, it's great to know that at UAL CCI there'll be people like you teaching this kind of work.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Mick.
Hello, everyone. Thanks a lot for watching. My name is Georgina Davila. I'm the creative learning producer at CCI. And just wanted to say thank you, Mick, for such a beautiful introduction about the course. It was great to hear from you about the units and hear from Rebecca as well. Now it's the time for the Q&A. So I would encourage everyone watching to just drop us any question you might have, any doubt, if you want some guidance on maybe the application, or you want to know more about how the course is gonna work. Now's your chance. So while we wait for people to reach out to us, I thought we could go through a few questions here that hopefully are going to be useful for students to hear. If that sounds good for you, Mick, we're going to go ahead with that. Yes. Could you share what kind of background in programming do students need in order to apply to this course?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of people, when they think about doing a course like this, I mean, it's a conversion course, right? Mm-hmm. So we're sort of saying you don't need any background in programming. You know, if you rock up and you've not had a chance to really explore programming before, but you want to and you think you're ready, then the course is structured to support you specifically to get you into that process. It's a conversion. So we do that with you. We hold your hand right from the very beginning, and we've designed the course so that it will get you into that way of thinking as quickly as possible, into that mode of computational thinking. So yeah, I would say that you don't need to have any. However, if you've had a bit of experience programming, that's definitely going to be useful. And you know, there's all kinds of ways you can do that. It doesn't have to be extensive, but if you've done a bit of web page design, or if you've worked on, you know, with some CSS, a bit of JavaScript, or if you've had a little play with some Python before, yes, that helps, because any preparatory work you can do beforehand, you know, that will make it easier for you in some ways. But yeah, if you came and you didn't have any idea, you'd be fine.
Amazing. Thanks for that, Mick. We've got a question from Jason Reed on the chat that says, are there any plans to offer the course to students on a part-time basis?
Yes, there are. UAL has the ability to offer courses at master's level on a part-time basis, and we would support students, particularly if you've got, I mean, there are really good reasons for studying part-time. If you have a job already and you want to keep that, if your employer wants you to skill up and they're willing to help you pay as well, that's also good. We don't want people to have to leave their job in order to study. On that note, we're also hoping to make some of these units available for people wanting to do continuous professional development. In particular, we already have a Future Learn course live, and we're going to make a new Future Learn course in the next few weeks, which is just a taster of the first few weeks to give you an idea of what it would be like. So I think what we want to do really is, yeah, sure, we want to support part-time, and we also want to support people with different backgrounds and different commitments so they can study at their own pace. And we're working hard to make sure we can do that.
Lovely, Mick. Thanks for that. It would also be useful to know how important will it be for students to have access to a high-end computer whilst undertaking the course?
That's an excellent question. And I think it's fundamentally, the way that I think one way to think about this is, yes, sure, you know, when you start a course, it's always good to make sure you have the materials. But, you know, some people might say, oh, yeah, but it's AI and data science and you've got to crunch a lot of numbers. And that's true. However, the CCI has servers specifically for students which allow you access. So if you have a computer which is okay, you know, you can access the internet, then we'll have a provision which will allow you to get access to more powerful machinery, and, you know, perhaps even remotely. So you'd be able to log in and use more high-powered machinery as part of the learning process. So that's an aim for us. We want to be able to support people without them having to shell out thousands of pounds on new hardware. And particularly, you know, in the kinds of context we're in now, that's something which is really important for us. So the answer is, of course, you know, the more powerful your own home computer is, the easier it is for you to work from home. But if you can't, then an ordinary computer would be fine, and we will provide you with even remote tools which allow you to undertake the course, even in a way which requires high performance computing.
That's good to know. Thanks, Mick. Is there anything students can do to prepare to starting the course?
Yeah, that's a good question too. As I was saying, you don't have to have any programming skills necessarily when you start, but it might be a good idea to maybe spend some time having a look at some introductory programming tutorials, and we can definitely forward some to you. So if you're interested in doing some more preparation work, then get in touch with us. We can point you to some of the tutorials and some of the learning materials that we've made freely available for people. In particular, we have a JavaScript crash course, which is entirely free, and that we've launched alongside our Future Learn courses. And you can just take that. Anyone can take that. It doesn't cost you anything. You can just go straight to our platform. And if you want to know how to get started, then you can just do that. But also, we can give you a list of other resources that might be very useful if you've never done anything like this before and you just want to kind of gauge how difficult you think it's going to be. So yeah, like I say, we have got the Future Learn programs which you can use and you can try, and they're going to be rolling out. There'll be more of those. But also, if you can do our online courses that we've made available for free just on our own platforms. And if you need even more stuff, get in touch with us and we can give you some good materials.
Amazing. Thank you, Mick. Thinking about what happens after finishing the course, it would be very useful to hear more about what kind of job opportunities could students have after becoming graduates.
Right. So I do have some statistics about the job opportunities, and without wanting to bore everyone, I think it's worthwhile saying that the government's own figures show that there's a 200,000 employee shortfall in these precise skills for precisely these areas, right? So there's 200,000 people in the UK who we need for these jobs, and they're not available, according to the Department of Culture, Media and Sport that was. So that report's a few years old now, but that was their prediction. There has been a massive investment to try to encourage and develop people to have skills in these areas, but it's not been massively successful. I think there's much more to do. What that means is there's a lot of work. There's a massive amount of work, and it's of strategic importance for the UK. I think what's more important is that in the creative industries, people in advertising, in television, in film, and in music, and in journalism, they're crying out for these skills. They really need people who understand how to talk machine learning. And that's kind of, I think the difficulty there is finding a course which is really relevant for people who are working in those fields or who are already trained in those fields. And that's what we've been working on, How can there's jobs available, right? Ad agencies need those jobs, need people who can do that work. Film companies and designers and all these different, not just in London, but across the UK, people working in creative industries, they need staff who understand art, understands creativity, but also understand, data mining. And so, we've worked hard to try and put that together. That's our offer. I think particularly if you come and study with us, there's an opportunity for you to spread your wings a bit and find a place in the future creative industries right here.
Amazing, Mick. Thank you. So talking about the projects that students will have the chance to develop during the course, for example, could students make machine learning artworks as part of their final project?
Yeah, they could. I think we want people to be as free as possible in their final projects to explore areas that are important to them and support them in doing so. And the people on the staff team got a lot of experience in different areas, including in computational installation art, recommendation engines for music and film companies, image processing and audio processing, natural language processing for journalism. And so we can support work in all of those fields, and we want to do that, but we don't want to dictate what it is that you choose to do, because I think that's part of the problem. It's like Rebecca was saying in the interview, if you see things in just one way, it's very easy to become very narrow. What the industry needs is people with very different approaches, people who see things differently, to diversify the workforce and make it more relevant to more people. And that's really important for us. So part of that is allowing people to do whatever it is they want and supporting them to do whatever it is they think is important. It's the cultural aspects and the societal aspects that are missing from people, from data science and artificial intelligence. That's where there are so many problems. And you could make a film, you can make music, you could just produce a series of portraits, put on an exhibition, make a VR or AR system. You could also choose to write a data science thesis and construct a piece of research around misinformation campaigns, or the way that, for example, Cambridge Analytica uses the notion of creatives to build misinformation campaigns. All of these things are interesting areas to explore, and I think need to be explored by people who have a new way of seeing the world.
Amazing. Thanks for your words, Mick. Also, on a more practical level, could you maybe talk a bit about how the course is going to be assessed?
Oh, yeah. So there's good news and bad news here, depending on your point of view. So the assessment of, I think I mentioned in the slides that there's one unit which is assessed via essay, and that's the one where there's much more influence from the industry, right? Where you're kind of talking to people who are working in AI, in industry, in the creative industries, and then writing about what they've done critically and thinking about what it means. So there's an opportunity for that. But also, I think, there is a mixture on top of that for most of the units of 50% exam, 50% practical. So the practical outputs are, I think, massively important. You need to be able to build things. So an awful lot of work that you'll do in most of the units will be projects, right? You build something, even if it's just a toy, right? It's just something which, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's just a way to demonstrate what you've learned. And we'll hold your hand there, we'll give you examples. And sometimes you'll be able to construct things from different components that we give you, and that will be the assessment. On top of that, I think it's important that you do understand the theoretical, scientific, and data science underpinnings that we've taught you. And so we will have exams for some units to test that. So it's a mixture, right? There's some essay work, there's definitely the final project, which is all just written, and maybe, some tools that you've built. Then there's a lot of practical work, a large amount of practical work. So the majority of it is critical writing and practical work. But there are also some exams just to make sure that you're meeting that threshold, and to make sure we can support you so you can meet the requirements of the program.
Lovely, Mick, thank you. We've got a question on the chat that says, does mathematics and statistics come in prerequisite skills for the course?
You mean before you join? No, of course, it's good if you've got a background in maths, and it's good if you've got a background in statistics, and that will help you. But the STEM for Creatives unit is designed to help bring you up to speed. I can tell you a personal story here. My background was in the arts and humanities, and my GCSE in maths was a grade C, and it was very difficult for me to get up to speed with the maths and stats when I started my PhD. But I did that, and it just required a shift in my thinking. And so a lot of people who'll be teaching you, they'll be aware of that shift in thinking and what's required to do it. So much of it is just about the application, right? So it's not a prerequisite, and we know how to help people who've not thought about things that way before learn that material and in really useful, meaningful ways, which is why there's so much practical work that you'd be doing on the course. So it's not a prerequisite. Of course, if you already have that background, it's going to be massively helpful. But then you might find that you're really good at maths, but you struggle to think about the creative possibilities when you're doing project work. So, it's a balance, right? It's a balance of skills.
Amazing. Thank you, Mick. I think we're almost done with this session today. I just wanted to clarify, how long is the course going to be?
So the course itself, our master's programs are a bit longer than other master's programs. So normally a master's program would be 12 months, but ours is 15 months. And the reason for that is it allows you to do a really substantial project alongside other master's students who are coming in that. So you come in September, and then if you're full-time, you do the whole year, and then you do another September to December. And you'd have other master's students who are new and fresh and green working with you, and also staff who are working on research projects supporting you whilst you're there. Often, I mean, we think that's better because often the final project is over the summer and you're on your own. Whereas the way we do it, you're with a cohort, even at that point where you're finalizing your project work. So the course is a bit longer than usual, which is better value for money, actually. And also you get much more attention in the final stages of your project.
Amazing, Mick. Thanks so much. I think that's all for today. We haven't received any more questions, so I think we'll call it a session now. Thanks so much, Mick, for your contribution today. Just a reminder that this session is going to be available to watch or rewatch anytime on our YouTube channel. Subscribe if you haven't done it yet to receive notifications on future events and future sessions we're running. We've got an MSc Internet Equalities session coming up tomorrow. So you can sign up on our Eventbrite or just get a notification on YouTube. And yeah, we're running a lot of after-school sessions open to everyone. So just feel free to join any of these online activities we're doing. And yeah, if you have any question about the course, we're always available at cci@arts.ac.uk. So we're always there to answer any doubts you might have. So yeah, I think that's all for today. Thanks everyone for watching, and thank you, Mick, for your contribution. And yeah, I'll see you in the internet.
Cheerio.